Hello, this is Margaret Ajibade, the STEM Positive Disruptor, and today I have on my platform a special guest, Nicholas Donkor. Um, he's a senior consultant with Amazon Web Services um, and Internet of Things, which he will tell us more about. The reason why we set up this platform is we want to educate, we want to raise awareness, we want to change people's perception and demystify what STEM is. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's about bringing the public into our domain, showing them the diverse roles that we have and diverse people that we have. Because again, what we're saying, we want to show that we want to be more inclusive and more accessible and show the diversity. And for us to do that, we have to showcase those people that actually work within the industry. And so I'm just grateful that this gentleman, Nicholas, is happy to join us on my platform today. So thank you and welcome again, Nicholas.
Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate the invitation. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you. So without further ado, please tell us more about what you do.
Absolutely. So I work for Amazon Web Services, as you said, and I've been with them now for over 6 years, and I work in a professional services role. So that means that I work closely with our customers to actually design and implement solutions on the Amazon Web Services platform. So I actually get my hands dirty, as they would say. The role that I perform is an IoT consultant. So IoT stands for Internet of Things, and it deals with connected devices. The way I could best put it is, or the way at least that I see IoT, is that I work to connect people to their environment. So we deal with sensors that are placed remotely, collecting information about the environment. And this could be in a factory, it could be out in a remote location. And it brings that information back into a platform, which then allows business leaders, allows engineers to gain insight from the data. And then they can do lots of different things with that data. They can build new products, they can improve customer experiences. So the way that I look at it, what I do is helping to create a better future for tomorrow.
Well, hey, exactly. That's what we want to do. That's why we because again, when we think about a STEM or science, technology, engineering, mathematics, it's about what we do and how we make a difference and how it's impacting our world in a positive way. And that's what we want to showcase. Again, we want to get young people, we want to enthuse young people to look at what we do and how it's making a difference within our world itself. I mean, of course, it's all relative to who you're speaking to. But in general, if we can give this information out to the public, especially young people who think, oh, I can't do this, this is too hard. But you're a prime example of what's possible, Nicholas. And so I'm so grateful that you explained that in detail, because I think that's very important. I was quite kind of intrigued because you started off as a mechanical engineer. I mean, sorry, I did that as well.
I
I don't know how I
did.
ended up in IT, but tell us why the shift, or maybe it's not the
Yeah.
shift.
No, absolutely. So, to be honest, I don't see it as going too far away from engineering. So, yes, I started off with mechanical engineering. I actually studied at Imperial College, and what I found during my studies is that it didn't necessarily excite me to go through the process of becoming a chartered engineer. I was looking at kind of that specialization approach and going really deep into something very specific, and then coming out the end of that being very specialized. And actually, I prefer to be more of a jack of all trades. And within IT, you've got that ability to just do whatever comes your way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what's happened in my career. So I started off in actually business process management when I started in IT. Worked for a small company based in Watford. And they sold a business process management suite, and that's basically allowing businesses to automate their processes.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that introduction to a customer-facing IT role was fantastic, because,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, I didn't want to specialize. I didn't want to go deep. Even in IT, I didn't want to be a core developer.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I really wanted to be out solving problems that were important to people. So a customer facing IT role within business process management was almost the perfect opportunity for me to really explore that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about 4 years. And
Mm-hmm.
then I suppose it was still very niche. So I was working with only Microsoft technologies. It was just within business process management, even though that business process management spanned multiple industries. I worked with banks, I worked with retail, I worked in engineering customers. So I did work with lots of different types of processes. It was still, for me, a bit too narrow. So I started looking at the market. I wanted to kind of expand my horizons towards project management, software development lifecycle, and so on. So I actually applied for a solution architect role with a company called Screwfix. And they're based, or their head office is based in Yeovil, which is where my wife comes from. And at the time, we were considering moving, so it was again a perfect fit. And my entire career is sort of this journey of perfect fits coming in at certain times, and I consider myself very lucky for that. But Screwfix gave me the opportunity to kind of broaden my horizons. So as a solution architect, I was looking within retail at a broad set of systems, spanning the entire retail domain. So from procuring products, so within the buying and merchandising, from being able to stock the products. So we had many systems that were doing many diverse different things within the business, all the way through to the supply chain side. So being able to with Screwfix, they had 3-minute click and collect, for example. So understanding how those systems worked and really getting into kind of retail as a domain. I did that for 2 years, and it was around the time that cloud was becoming predominant in the market. You started to see a lot of kind of these quick startups spinning up and doing fantastic things with like industry leading technology. And I was sat within the retail industry, which wasn't moving as fast. And they did catch up, and I've seen some fantastic things coming out of our retail customers while I've been at AWS, but it was a bit slow at the start. So I decided that, and this is part of my profile, I like to work with industry leading technology, and I like to work with really intelligent people that are going to push me forward. So when I was looking at opportunities to do that, AWS was a fantastic chance to just meet those types of people, work with that type of technology, but then also in the almost as a byproduct of doing that, also working to improve society, because the work that we do is really going out and changing how these businesses do what they do. If you take manufacturing, for example, but by introducing IoT and introducing these insights, they're able to be more sustainable. For example, they're able to create more products that actually meet their customer satisfaction. So it's something that for me, I look at it as a calling more than a career. And this is why I say there's a lot of things that I say I'm really grateful for how they fit in. Because I really actually, when I wake up in the morning, enjoy going in and understanding what it is that I can help my customers with. And then the technology is a byproduct to get to the solution. But at the end of the day, we're improving the situation for the customer, for their customers, and so on. So that's kind of how I saw that journey. And the switch from engineering to IoT for me wasn't a conscious thing. It just, at the end of my degree, it was, I want to do something that is going to challenge me, is going to keep me growing. And as you can see from the description there, IT gave me that chance, as a continual growth journey. And it's still going. It hasn't ended.
That's true. I mean, you actually call yourself, is it a pure technologist?
Yeah,
I true technologist.
Yeah, I consider myself a true technologist. I have a great admiration for what technology can do for customers and customer experiences. And I think that belief has also kind of led me to that space, the IoT space, where it's kind of a merging of technology and the physical world.
Indeed. It's so true. And I do love the fact that you understood. I think it's so important as any individual person is to know who you are and knowing what works for you. You knew that you didn't want to be, how do you say, an expert in a particular role, but you wanted to have a varied experience, which allows you to then, even though you have the foundation, you're able to do much more than that. So as a consultant, that actually gives you that opportunity to do that. So what would you describe a typical day for you?
Oh, it varies. So my role can involve advisory, where we're working with customers that are just looking for us to kind of understand how they're doing their business today, particularly around the technology that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and how we can advise them to go and improve the situation. So it might be that they are migrating a particular platform and that platform has been particularly costly to them. It might be that we're working with a customer that wants to save energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be advisory, but then we can go into the next step, which is, okay, well, we've identified an area where we can go deep and really help you by bringing some of this technology to life.
Mm-hmm.
So then we work with the customer, we will design a solution, and then we can go all the way through to actually implement that solution on the AWS platform.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I like that. I mean, I do understand the consult, but I think when you speak to an audience, everyone has their own perception. It's quite nice to be able to get an understanding how things work for you. And also, it's quite interesting as well because, you know, you in a way you do lots of project management because that also is a role that it's and you know you said you didn't want to be a chartered engineer, which is quite interesting though because you're part of the NBC. Is that just for you to? I don't understand. I'm part of. Well, I'm a fellow BCS. But the only reason I'm asking that is that you can still become a chartered engineer if you wanted to, or a chartered IT practitioner, if that's the word they use now.
Yes, I could. So I see them as being slightly different. So
Okay.
it wasn't so much the chartership that was the issue. I think for me, when I looked at the process within engineering,
Yeah.
engineering is is quite a specialist area. And if you want to go, for me, being a generalist in engineering is actually really challenging because well, if I look at oil and gas as an area, if you want to be able to really make a difference within engineering, you need to know that domain really well, sort of industry specialism. And if I compare that to what I'm doing now within IoT, I'm not a specialist in any particular industry. So I work with customers from automotive, from engineering, from municipals. So I bring the technology, I understand how the technology can help, and then I'm more of a generalist working with the customer, understanding their business, and then trying to apply the technology in the best fit or the best way that meets the needs that they have. So that's how I see the difference. And it meant that I can be much more general. Yes, I go quite deep in terms of the IoT technology, but I'm not necessarily within a particular industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know, hey, and this is so important. And you know why I do like what you said is because sometimes we feel we have to be an expert in something, but we don't have to. You can be a general engineer or have that varied experience. And this is what you said. And I think you also mentioned that this is your true calling. Is that more to do because you're very customer facing? It's really about your relationship with your customers. The software is just a byproduct of what you really do, what you actually truly enjoy. Can I say that correctly? Oh man,
Yeah,
is that right?
so yes, it's partly true. If I was doing a job that was purely developing and building solutions without having the customer interaction, my day would be, I feel, much less meaningful to me. I think the combination of being able to work with people and actually see the fruition of the technology in their domain is what makes my day or my role so rewarding from my perspective.
Do you know, hey, that is so true. And I do love that. I think in a way what you're saying, that this is who I am, this is where I feel comfortable, this is where I feel I can give my best. And I think that's so important because when the public listens to you or young people hear you, they don't it gives them that understanding that, hold on, you don't have to be this in order to be able to do that. But as long as you understand who you are and how you see yourself, I mean, of course that evolves because the more experience you have or the older you get, you realize where you really truly fit and what makes you tick. And then you're able to adapt to suit or you make the environment suit you in so many ways. And I guess where you are right now, it works very well for you because you've been there quite a period of time as well. So thank you very much for that because that's so important because again it's about you the knowing yourself, and you know yourself very well now to know what works for you, what makes you tick. I will not make you tick.
It wasn't always that way, Margaret. It's been a journey.
Indeed, and exactly, and I think that's so important to know that, and it's so important so that when people hear you say that, they know that it's okay not to know everything now. But when you get to that place of understanding of who you are, then when you make those choices or decisions, you know it will work. It will be the right one for you. As long as you're not a follower, as long as you know who you are, because not everyone can make that decision because they feel they have to be part of, I don't know, the group, or whether, you know, the people that do all these things, because that seems to be where the recognition is. But hey,
Yeah,
I do like this. So thank you so much, Nicholas, for that.
not a problem at all.
Thank you. So if you were to just looking at in a more generic point of view, because we want to enthuse young people, we want to enthuse diverse people from diverse background into, say, doing what you do right now. How would you sell it to them?
So sell IoT, sell professional services.
Well, just basically your role, because you know,
Yeah.
not everyone, and you know, sometimes we think everyone knows what a consultant does and how it fits in, but really, I know you've explained that, but if someone wanted to follow your path, what
Yeah.
would you say would be, I don't know, steps? I don't know.
Yeah, so I give a bit of context to certainly how my journey started.
Mm.
I suppose this is prior to graduating. It's going to come into that realization that engineering wasn't the direction I wanted to go in, and actually, I had some childhood dreams that, you know, I originally wanted to be a pilot at one point.
All right.
So when I graduated, and it's still in line with the engineering, because I was looking at, you know, doing some commercial flying, then potentially going into being a test pilot for one of the aviation companies, you know, Boeing or Airbus. That was kind of what I was originally looking at. And unfortunately, my eyesight didn't meet the standard, but I tried out for the course anyway at Oxford Aviation Academy, got through. They gave me my certificate to say, look, you can start in September if everything checks out. Did my eye test, and unfortunately, I wasn't eligible for a pilot's license. I had a degenerative eye condition at the time, which I've since had arrested by some surgery. So it's all good now.
Okay.
But as a result of that, I had to kind of sit back and look at what is it that is meaningful to me, and that's where that kind of insight came from in terms of looking at IoT. Well, not so much IoT, but IT, and then going through that journey that's had led me to IoT.
Mm-hmm.
And the initial insight came from while I was working at Apple. So I was a family specialist at the Milton Keynes Apple, and a gentleman came in who was an enterprise architect at Atos. And I spent a good half hour just in a general conversation with this gentleman. And at the end of the conversation, he said, "You would make a fantastic architect." I said, "What? What's an architect? I've never even thought about that as an option."
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me this advice. He said, "Look, if you're interested in getting into architecture, first of all, you need to be as broad as you can. So get yourself into a bit, customer-facing role that is deeply involved with technology." And so that was initially my spur. And that's when I did a retraining course with a company, Just IT, at the time in London. Spent 6 months in there. And then through, again, the luck of the draw, this particular company that I started off with, P&M Soft, the BPM business process management company, were looking for people at that time. So I never actually completed the course. It's meant to be a 12-month course. I got 6 months in, and they came in and said, "Look, actually, we're looking for customer-facing people that we can actually teach." So I spent the time with them. They leveraged the soft skills that I had from my background, my upbringing, my time at university, but then they gave me the technical depth, working with the Microsoft technologies. So the advice I would give is, be open, find that right fit for you. It's not necessarily to dive into a particular technology today. It's not particularly to dive into a particular area of industry, but find where for you get that balance of, if you're looking for customer facing, that balance of customer facing with technology, and that's what leads you to kind of a consulting role. Both of those skills have to come together. in order for you to be successful in consulting. And which technology doesn't really matter. I've been on a journey where it led me through stages of getting more and more technical over time, but I've seen people go the other way. I've seen them come in, be relatively technical to start off with, graduating from computer science, and actually go towards project management to business architecture. So it really depends on what resonates with you, but you need to be open, and also be patient. Sometimes you'll be in a place where it's not really fitting, but actually taking the time to bed in to that still teaches lessons, and lessons that are transferable to the next role and the next role. And if it's really not working, absolutely don't stay. But where you can kind of find that middle ground, for me, it's always about that middle ground of, if I stay here, am I going to learn something new? Is it going to support my future growth? And it may not be that the whole job is really working for me, but if I can identify those things that are helping me forward and really kind of bed those down, then actually staying in the role for 6 months, a year, you can see that as a stepping stone. And for me, it's really about the mindset. It's the perspective. And that helped me kind of identify the key things that were important. And it was always about growth. What's the next phase? What gets me to the next level of competence, or to the next level of soft skills? I tried to push myself, particularly with like public speaking, for example. AWS really pushed me to actually start getting up on stage. And initially that was hard. I'm not one to kind of stand in the limelight. I've historically I'm quite shy, but through the journey it's kind of giving me more confidence of myself. And I think that's the thing I would call out, is be open, take opportunities as they come, but don't be too prescriptive on yourself either.
That's so true. That is so true. I think sometimes we feel we have to be this because everyone's saying you have to. So we listen to everybody else's voices rather than our own and what's true to us. And you found that. And I think in a way that is so, so important. And I think when I look back on all the speakers, they came to that understanding, or came to that conclusion. Hold on a minute. What is it? What makes me tick? What makes me happy? And then finding that enables you to then propel yourself forward. Because when you find your space, then everything becomes easier as well, because then you're enjoying what you're doing, and it shows that, and people want that. And it's just like, just going back slightly to the person you met who said, I think he could be an architect. No, is it architect? Yeah.
Architect, at the time, yes.
At the time, not, but that was, you didn't even think about that, because he, you didn't see it as he saw it. But people do observe us, people do see things that maybe we don't always see, and they pinpoint and bring that out as well. And the fact is that you tried. You said be open, and you opened yourself to that opportunity, even though you weren't really sure where you were heading. But look at you now, many years later. Well, 2 years later, anyway.
And I'm still seeing opportunities, and this is, I think, I suppose a takeaway that I would leave to the audience is that opportunities can come from anywhere. So being open to the opportunities that come, and sometimes they may not be the direction that you originally intended for yourself. But when you look at it, and sometimes timing comes in, and when you look at it and you go, even if I was to do this for a short period of time, the growth from that could propel me to something, astronomical, something that I'd never thought of, in a direction that I'd never considered. So that openness for me is really key.
So true. I do agree with you as well. I think it's so, so important. And I think in a way, this is what we want to do. We want to enthuse. We want to get people to not be so caught up in the now, or what they feel it should be is the right thing, but just stand back a bit, and just reflect. Because I think when you reflect, it gives you opportunity to think about, okay, this is me now. What is it? Is it working for me? But what can I gain from this? It's also everywhere, every step you take is an opportunity to learn. And I think when you grasp that, it means that you're not going to be so overwhelmed by situation, or you make irrational decisions because you just don't feel it fits in, or whatever reasons why. And that's so great. And being open to opportunity, or be open-minded to what can be presented, and do not shut the door just because it doesn't seem to be as you want it to be. So wonderful. So just quite quickly, I just want to start, within your organization itself.
Yes.
Is it quite diverse? Because this is what we
Yeah,
and
so absolutely. So the actual AWS team is extremely diverse. As a global company, we have colleagues from various backgrounds, from in terms of ethnicity, in terms of kind of religion. So when you go through it, actually, there's people from every walks of life. To be honest, that's part of why I enjoy consulting.
yeah,
So, because whether I'm dealing with AWS colleagues or dealing with colleagues from outside into customers, when you walk into the room, you're dealing with people with a very diverse background.
yeah,
They're coming from upbringings that are wildly different from my own,
yeah,
right? And the upbringings really imprint on us, and make us who we are. So you're not just selling technology as a consultant, you're actually going in and understanding people.
yeah,
My job is actually working with people, and
yeah,
as a result of working with people, I identify challenges, needs, and then I try and do a match of those needs to technology. And this is why I think it's not so much when you look, if you have a calling towards consulting, actually you can consult in many areas.
yeah,
Technology is just one area that you can consult in, and if it's the consulting aspect that's the calling, actually there's a huge range of
yeah.
things that you can do. So for me, within the organization, yes, hugely diverse. I have some relatively different opinions towards the kind of the diversity and inclusion topic, and I was debating whether or not to bring them up in this particular
Please do, please
conversation.
do.
So we already live in a diverse world, and we're only getting more diverse. But I feel and this is something that's an insight that's come to me just over the last few years, that actually as a race, as a human race, we're not necessarily ready for inclusion. And the reason I say that is that we're very at the level of consciousness that we are today, we're very tied to this idea of self. And I see more and more segregation coming in, as opposed to actually coming towards a collective. So for example, just as one example, and I have no issues with anybody that use pronouns, for example. I think using pronouns is something that if you're comfortable with and you want to share them, you should absolutely do so. But for me, pronouns is another separation. It's another way of defining self and separating us out rather than coming together. And I see, as if I take the pronouns as an example, for me they're labels, and we continually as a race we have to give things names. But as soon as we give them a name, we're able to attach feeling, emotion, and then as a result of that feeling and emotion, stigma arises. And there was a period of time around the time of the Black Lives Matters movement, and I was really challenged by it, because I didn't necessarily identify as being Black, and only because Black for me doesn't speak to my heritage, doesn't speak to my history. I'm an African Caribbean. I have mix of African Caribbean blood. I have Caribbean family and who I see regularly, and I love my Caribbean food. And I have African family when they go back to Ghana, and I love the culture that they bring. But none of that is spoken to by a color.
True.
And for me, that we need to kind of transcend this attachment to words. The human race is a mastery, or have mastered language, but actually all that language has done is create division over time, and we need to kind of transcend this. And I'm going on this journey currently through kind of learning a little bit more about how my ego, and how do I let go of my ego, because when it shows up, it actually causes more harm than good. And so when I look at the same thing for transcending and trying to surrender and trying to let go, I see that coming through in the inclusion topic, specifically around understanding and transcending some of these labels that as a race we've attached to. and then we'll be ready for inclusion. Because at that point, without these labels, coming together as a collective, just seeing each other as what we are, one consciousness, parts of one being, we're able to actually do far more for society than what I mean, we've come a long way, don't get me wrong, but just moving to that next level, the things that we could potentially do for society are immense. And you know, to bring it back to kind of within the organization, within AWS, there's the Black Ethnic Network. And it's a bunch of fantastic people doing fantastic evangelism for the cause, but I've never felt called to join it. Whereas,
and there's nothing wrong with that. I think the thing is, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to be part, and that's what I'm saying. You don't have to follow the trend just because if you know who you are, then that will come through. And I think in a way, what you're doing right now, Nicholas, is that you're going through a self-discovery journey for yourself. And you understand you. And you're right about labels, Will. I think we in the world will love labels because it helps us to put people into little boxes, which I think is dangerous, but it also can create division. It can create segregation. Not intentional, but that's what happens.
Not intentionally, but that,
it does happen. Exactly. And I think in a way you're right. And I think it's about knowing self. I know that we are, if you really truly want to be one, then you have to take away all the elements that we try to attach to somebody just because it's comfortable for you or safe for you to do that. And I think I seriously, I do understand where you're coming from. And it's important for us as human beings to reflect and think, hold on a minute, if I label you this, what am I really doing? What am I really creating? Exactly. And so, yeah, I hear you, I understand, and I appreciate your journey. No, I'm not saying it just because I'm here, but I'm saying because I do know, because I hate labels. I'm putting my hands up. I hate labels because labels just cause more problems. Let's see, it makes people's life easier, but it doesn't. It just creates more problems.
More problems. Yeah, so, that's been my experience, and I just thought I'd share that in the context of the kind of diversity inclusion. So I fully on, you know, from a diversity perspective, this is happening, right? The world is becoming more diverse. You know, it's a moving locomotive. No one can stop that aspect, right? But inclusion, I think. The way I see it at the moment in society, there's work to be done, and there's steps that we still need to take for true inclusion.
True. I you know, that's a big topic and another but you're right. I as I said, what you said it makes good sense, and it's not just saying just because I do what you just said, it resonates with what I think, and I think sometimes labels can be very dangerous. It's not an intentional way of separation, but it actually does create separation, because then you see me as this, where I really should be seeing it as, because if I should look at you and see you in me. Does that make sense? The mirror, it's like we should be able to see each other, because we're much more than the physical. We're the inner being.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Exactly. So I agree with you there. So thank you so much. I really appreciate our conversation. This is, you know, it's kind of thought-provoking, and I love that. And I hope and I pray that people who listen to us, listen to you, your speech, and listen to our conversation, would also be reflective, because I think it's so important for us as human beings to be reflective, not to be too much in a hurry to go that way, but just sit down just for a while and just say, hold a minute, this, whatever. And it just be sure that every time we look around, we are looking out for each other at the same time. So thank you so much.
I totally resonate with that. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you anyway, thank you very much, Nicholas. I really appreciate that. Thank you again. This is Margaret Ajibade, STEM Positive Disruptor, and with my special guest today, Nicholas Donkor, Senior Consultant with AWS, specializing in IoT, but as a consultant that people facing, and he's doing a great job as well. So please listen, subscribe to the channel, and let us spread the word as well, because that's what we want to do, making sure the diversity in the roles, diversity in the people that work in the industry too. Thank you.